1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
We already talked about describing quantities greater than 5, even if we haven't named above 5. So for example, we spoke about this being 2 and 2 and 2 and 1, or even 3 and 4. Another example of the zebras could be described as 2 and 3 and 2 perhaps, or 2 and then the collective 5 at the bottom. And in the case of the dice, we could also speak about describing it as 2 and 5. Let's look at another quantity greater than 5. If I ask someone what do they see here, they might say, I see a card with 7 apples and another card with 2 apples, and that would be correct. Another child might opt to say, I see 2 cards, and that would also be correct, and we could ask for more detail. A child who knows 9 may call it 9 apples. Another one may speak of 3 rows of apples, or 3 rows of 3 apples, or even 3 columns of 3 apples. There are so many different ways to describe this. It could also be 3 and 3 and 3, or 3 threes, and that's really what we're aiming towards, is for learners to speak about 3 threes. With these 2 cards, for example, when we talk about what do you see, the most inefficient way would be to say 2 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 2 and 1, if you're looking at the apples in columns. Otherwise, you could look at one card as 2 and 3 and the other card as 2 and 3, or each card being 5, and you would have 5 and 5, which would be 2 5-apple cards. And again, the ultimate explanation or description we are working towards is 2 5s. This is called 5. So what do you see here? You would see 5 and 5 and 5, or 3 boxes of 5. Or we could talk about 3 dice of 5, or 3 5s. The important thing here is that a child is talking about one quantity in terms of another quantity, which lays a very important basis later for multiplicative reasoning. With young children up to 5 years old, we only name up to 5, so that they can use the names from 1 to 5 to describe as much as possible. With those names, they can describe quantities up to 25 without naming them. This trains their eyes to see different patterns and structures. If we name too much too quickly or too early, they tend to use the names rather than learning the important skill of describing what they see in terms of what they know. Using this approach helps children to learn quantities as composites and combinations of other quantities at a very early age, which in turn encourages mathematical reasoning over counting. Once a child has done a lot of describing with the names 1 to 5 and is very comfortable describing this as 5 and 5, we start naming the quantities above 5 up until 10. We'll talk more about this in the next video.